Okay, so hello everyone. Thank you so much for your presence here today in this beautiful Friday morning. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. This is a very important event for us. Since the deadline for the early registration of Crystel in Camp 2030, the Global's Youth-Led Innovation Lab for the Sustainable Development Goals 2030 is coming close at the end of this month. Please visit our fundraising platform on www.gofundme.com/f/Crystel-in-camp-2030-New York. After this meeting, we'll also make this interview available on YouTube and post it on BetterWorld Cameroon website and now on our Facebook pages. The first part of the interview will last about 30 minutes, and then we'll open the space for your questions and comments. For now, we ask you to mute your speakers to reduce the noise as much as possible and to avoid interferences. Okay, so today here with us we have Crystel Koh. She's a 26-year-old youth development activist from the northwest region of Cameroon. She's a volunteer with BetterWorld Cameroon. She has a passion for youth development, human empowerment, social justice, and global peace. She is responsible for managing the youth empowerment programs for the organization, including youth exchange programs between youth of the Global South and the Global North. She's also currently leading a training of trainers program comprising of a team of 5 young people will go on to lead and implement the emergence of the new Bafut Ecovillage Refugee Relief and Peace Center, as well as BetterWorld Portugal. She is also part of NextGEN Africa, where she sees this platform as a means to stand as a bridge between both hemispheres and their people. Wow, there's a lot of things here to talk about today. Welcome, Crystel, and thank you for accepting this challenge and for talking with us today.
It's an honor.
Okay, so firstly, I would like you to tell us a bit about your personal history and how did you get to engage with BetterWorld Cameroon?
Yeah, so as some of you may know, I go by the name of Crystel Koh. I come from Cameroon, from a community in the northwest region of Cameroon, Bafut, found in Central Africa. I grew up with a father who was a gardener, and like his passion was so contagious, but somehow it didn't get to me because also we grew up in the city and this wasn't really something that was being practiced a lot. But over time, I began to take an interest when I was about to go into the university, and I attended an international summer work camp which had young people from both the south and the north. And one particular thing about the Cameroonian youth was that a lot of them who were present for that event were university graduates. And in the course of the program, I discovered that about 90% or more of them were unemployed. So I began to wonder, how is it possible that some of them had graduated 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago and still didn't have anything doing? And why would they be in a program like this? So I took an interest when I realized that they wanted skills that they could use to start up something small, either a business or an organization, just the skills that our school systems do not provide to us. So for me, really, this was the eye-opening moment when I realized that I needed to do something. If not, I could find myself in that same position. And for me, really, at that time, it was not only about me, but about other young people. Like, what will be the fate of these young people if such a tendency were to continue over time? So I attended the event, and at the end of the event, I decided to join the BetterWorld Students Nature Club, which was a club that just brought together these young people who carried out activities around the city. They planted trees, they made gardens in councils and all of that, did cleanup campaigns, and really that was it for me. And from there, this passion just grew more and more and more and more, and I eventually began to volunteer for Better World while I was still a student in the university. And upon graduation, I decided to go in full time. So I applied and I was recruited as a full-time volunteer.
Great, great. So you were volunteering with BetterWorld Cameroon since 2011. That's about 9 years now. Tell us about the vision and the values that you and BetterWorld Cameroon, throughout your work, you try to plant in your communities and with the young people, in order to make the change that you envision.
Yeah. So often many people have asked me how I got here, like how did you come about this passion? And I must say that I owe it to my dad, because I grew up with a visionary father who apparently foresaw the future and realized that in a country like Cameroon, if nothing was done, then the young people would just be left to whine and suffer. And this was going to be something that was going to carry on over and over and over. So I decided to join Better World. And when I joined Better World, I realized that they were different from the other organizations because they were impacting values into young people that so many other organizations were not focused on. And they were really about bringing back the spirit of solidarity amongst Africans, which is something that we had lost long, long time ago. And also they were focusing on this vision of empowering young people and focusing on the young people, helping them take their own future into their own hands. And for me, this was just something that needed to happen because nobody was looking at this. The government wasn't looking at it, and other organizations were focused on doing other things other than that. And in my cause of being with Better World, the key values that they carried were accountability, transparency, and responsibility, which is something that is very lacking in our society today. So for me, this was the place to be. This was where I had to be. This were morals that had to be impacted into the youth, because the society and the concept of the West had overshadowed that of the Africans. We were losing our culture, we were losing ourselves, we were losing our personality, and really, these are the values that made me to even want to get more involved in what was happening.
Oh, thank you. So also, besides the youth development, you're also a big voice inside Better World Cameroon in terms of human empowerment. So tell us as well, what was the situation when you joined in? You explained very well about the youth, about what you saw, but also about the role of the women. How much you saw in the situation before they were struggling. What and how did the work that you and Better World Cameroon are doing what is the impact they are having in order to make the change?
In 2013, 2014, we started a project in Bafut called the Bafut Ecovillage project. And the idea was just to set up a demonstration center for all those things that we had been preaching, where people could actually come and see what was happening and actually gain the skills like practicality. And so while we were settled in that community, and one of the things that we noticed, of course, which is also what is happening in other communities in Cameroon, was that the women, who most of them were like the breadwinners of the family, because in Africa it is believed that the man is supposed to be responsible for the home and for the kids and for the family and all of that. But this wasn't something that was happening, or something that we could see, as the men were very focused on their own stuff, their meetings, and the responsibility came back upon the women. So we began to think, how do we empower those women to be able to be sustainable and to be able to contribute to their children? Because at the end of the day, it was still the women who were caring for the family and had to send the children to school and all of this. One very key activity that was going on in that community was farming. So one of the ideas we believe in Better World is to always use what is existing and not try to invent new stuff or bring in new concepts. So we then began to think, how do we help these farmers grow more, make money from what they're already doing. And as a result, we started the program that we call today the High Value Agricultural Program, which is basically just bringing in new and sustainable farming techniques to incorporate the local knowledge that these women already had. It's also around creating cooperatives that help support the women and empower them to become more sustainable. Another thing that we were able to do was to bring in the concept of the rocket stove, the African kitchen rocket stove, which is an adapted stove, because in Africa, most communities, we use the three-stone fireside, which consumes a lot of wood and also emits a lot of smoke into the atmosphere, which is bad for our climate. So since we are working, also one of the things we are working on is climate mitigation, we thought about how do we adapt the stove so that it's comfortable for the women, it's healthy for the women and their families, but also healthy for the environment. And what is very interesting about this concept is that you don't need any imported materials. You don't need any towels or any extra thing. You can use everything that is available around you, like the soil that we have, the earth, the grass, bottles, just local materials that were available. And for the young people, we started programs like the summer camp, which I talked about, but we also brought in the Ecovillage design education, which is a concept from GEN, Global Ecovillage Network, where we empower those young people who want to start up similar projects like the one we started in Bafut, and who need the knowledge that is needed to go and be able to implement that. But also those who wanted to start up like businesses and all of that. And we incorporated this into these programs. In some years, 2017, we joined the Erasmus Plus platform, and we started carrying out projects between the global south and the global north. This for us is very important because we are first and also foremost trying to build a bridge between Africa and the West. So really this was a great platform to do this, and working with young people made it even magical for us.
Wow, thank you. So one of the things that definitely had a big impact on the way that you operate, the activities that you do, and the way that BetterWorld Cameroon operates was the civil war that outbreak in Cameroon in the end of 2017. So tell people around just how much does it affect the activities itself, but how much it doesn't affect the vision that you still have, and what can people expect from you when the situation gets calmer?
Yeah, Myra, I want to thank you for this question, because this is really a very important question, because we are at that point in the organization where we had to rethink ourselves, we had to reinvent ourselves because of this crisis, which has been going on since late 2017. And this is like, it hit us hard because where this is happening in Cameroon is like in one of the regions where our heart project was. And really that took us aback, because we were hoping that the situation would somehow subside, but it didn't. So we tried to, over the years, try to still be able to operate from other parts of the country. And we even started a project in the other region, which is in the French side of the country, which is really not affected. But even that wasn't enough. So it forced us to move, and we had to slow down things. We had to slow down our vision. And this was really a very tough moment, because we had a project called Ecovision 2020, which was about transitioning 54 communities in the village of Bafut into sustainable communities. And this project, this vision was just taken aback. And we had young people come up to us and complain, and they wanted stuff to do. They had already been integrated into our projects, and they were believing that something could actually happen. And how to explain to them that this really can't move the way we planned is one of the things that has been so difficult, and we are still struggling with it right now. So really, the war has been tough for us, and we believe that we would have even more challenges once it's gone, because one of the things that we were trying to bring into the community is a sense of trust. And with everything that has happened now, it's this whole idea of trusting someone is gone, because we have even brothers that are fighting each other. So how do we still bring back the sense of trust? How do we make the young people believe that what we were preaching, which is farming the land and growing the land where all the riches are, is still a reality? Because right now the situation is they just have to do anything to survive. Their houses have been burned. They have no places to go to. So really just really bringing back those values that we have been trying to promote all these years is going to be a really tough challenge for us.
Yeah. But I know that one of the things that you want to implement, and hopefully this will be the time where, after all the situation calms down, this is where it will come to reality. It's the Bafut the Bafut Ecovillage refuge relief, to help all the young Cameroonians and young Africans that were thinking in first place even to migrate, try to reach to Europe, but also the people who are suffering from this war, this internally displaced people, which is, I think from now, is almost 500,000 people, which is it's an enormously amount of people. Tell us a bit more about the project and yeah.
Yeah, so the Bafut Eco Village, we chose to call it a peace center because in times like this, where there's so much chaos around the world, we need more than ever to preach a message of peace. And peace, it's first of all peace with oneself. So we are looking at how do we instill a sense of peace and control in individuals before expanding it. And we want to be able to upscale our Ecovillage project into a peace and resettlement center for all these young people that have been displaced by the war, all the homeless people that we have because of the war, and all those people who have migrated to neighboring countries and all of that. But also that we don't want to limit it only to Cameroon, because as we know, war is something that is ravaging a lot of countries in Africa. We want to be able to accommodate other young people, especially and women and children who are suffering the same fate as we are right now. So it's really just going to be this center that allows for these people to gradually heal, because as we know, war has very strong effects, both on the psychology and on the individual. So allowing them, providing them with a space, first of all, a space to stay, sleep, just food to eat, like just the basics, because right now we have, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of young people, women and children in the bushes who are sleeping and living in horrible conditions. So how do we just be able to provide the basics, but at the same time allow for them to gradually heal and build this trust and build all of these things that we believe in this community? So really that is what our project will be focusing on. But also the other side of it is that many of them right now have lost their source of income. Some of them are bike riders, their bikes are gone. Like, how do we offer them skills that, because we believe that after the war, a lot is going to change. And really, people would not just be able to go back and apply for jobs in offices. They would need to survive on their own. So how do we provide them with those skills that will be needed to survive in the environment that we would find ourselves in?
Thank you. Yeah. I think I just need to take a deep breath as everyone else, because the situation, especially for the people who saw it and lived it, it's really complicated. And even for the ones of us who didn't, to put ourselves in that situation, yeah, the part where the personal healing comes from as well, no? To accept this, but don't let it affect you. And
Yeah.
So at the moment, for the people who don't know, you are living in southern Portugal, learning and sharing practices regarding sustainability, eco-building, social ecology, this healing process, inner work. Also, together with your partners, you're building Better World Portugal, or Mundo Melhor Portugal, and the training of trainers programs. Well, tell us a bit about that. How's your experience as being for you?
Um, yeah, so in the midst of all the chaos and all that was happening in Cameroon, we found ourselves wanting because we couldn't stay in the Ecovillage anymore, and pretty much the whole region wasn't safe. So we found ourselves wanting a place where we could just regroup and continue to do what we do, but at the same time, we envision it with what we hope would happen after the crisis. And we had amazing friends all over the world who were concerned about us. And at that point, one of our partners, Camera Healing Biotop, thought of us and said, why not come? Because also gradually our work was shifting towards peace building. So we've not been into peace before. We don't know what it takes to build a peace village and all of that. So we came up with this concept of a TOT, which is a trainer of trainers program. So we needed to empower the young people who will be able to return and then implement this peace village project that we're talking about. And so that's how we found ourselves a team of 5 young people in Portugal undergoing this TOT training. At the same time, we were not sure about the outcome of the war, like how long will it take, what happens all this time. So we said, instead of just focusing on the TOT program, why don't we build a platform that allows for partnerships and collaboration? Because if there's one thing that personally I have learned is that you can't do anything alone. So in as much as we have this vision and want to do all of these things, we need support. And if we're going to stand as the bridge between the North and the South, we need the partnerships and the collaborations from the other side. So we decided to build this platform for partnerships and collaboration where we could exchange of best practices and knowledge and ideas and find these people who have a similar vision, who carry the vision that we're carrying, and who see that it is possible to support us to realize this. So basically, that's what we're doing right now at the moment. And it's been a tough, complicated, but an awesome journey so far.
Great, great. And well, adding to everything we talked so far, all these projects, all these concepts, ideas, beautiful things you are building. You're also working with NextGEN Africa from the part of Global Ecovillage Network Africa for the youth. So tell us a bit about the work you do with the organization. And,
I was first introduced to the Global Ecovillage Network via BetterWorld when we won the Gaia Trust Award for the most innovative project in Africa. This for us was like our golden trophy because it now meant that what we were actually doing on the ground makes sense. It's needed in the world, and people recognize that it needs to be recognized and it needs to be given the applause that it needs. And really, I got involved more and more when I participated in the EDE, because in the past we had like mini EDEs and then we had a full one, which really just gave me a bigger understanding and the skills that I needed to go out there and do what I was doing. Last year I was invited to join the NextGEN Africa interim. It was an interim board because they were restructuring, and so they needed volunteers who had knowledge about the values of GEN, what they were promoting, and who could support the young people in Africa, support GEN Africa already to set up a strong network of their own. So I joined the interim board at the time, and then this year I was made the president of that. And working with these young people has just been amazing. We have amazing young people doing amazing things around eco villages, around the concept of building communities around the world. And as the president right now, I just want to be able to support them in any way that I can. And my vision is to be able to bring those projects to the limelight, because one thing that's happening in Africa is that a lot of visibility is not being given to the work that young people in Africa are doing. So I just want to be able to help them, give them the recognition that they deserve, and just to promote the amazing things that they are doing, and share as much knowledge and skills that I have acquired over the years with these people.
Okay. Thank you. And last question that I have here for you, and going to the initial purpose why we're making this interview, that is to for the fundraising to try to get you to Camp 2030 in New York. So I would like you to explain to the people who don't really know the concept or what we are talking about, for you to explain briefly what is Camp 2030, and why do you think your participation on it would it's so important for your work, and also for the people who would have the blessing to have you there.
Yeah. We live in times right now where everybody is so focused on the sustainable development goals, and really we as one people have adopted that as a means to making a better world, creating a better world for all of us. So the Camp 2030 is just an innovation lab that brings together young people who are working on the SDGs, to be able to just create this space, this forum for them to collaborate and share ideas and best practices. So it's a 7-day event that will be holding in New York in September. And I was selected based on the work that I have been doing with and for young people to participate in this event. And I was put in the area of climate change, which is really a very important aspect right now, because it's connected, because what is happening in Africa affects what is happening in Europe. I mean, most of the big industries in Europe, we don't have them in Africa, but we still get to feel the same effects that the rest of the
Mhm.
world is feeling. And through my work with BetterWorld, but also some of the programs that I started and worked with, like the environmental education in schools, I have knowledge that I can bring on board, and concepts that we have been working with back in BetterWorld, and also what I have gathered with my connection with other young people in Africa through Gen Africa, that I can bring onto this platform and just share the amazing things that we are doing around the SDGs. So for me, this is really an opportunity to go out there and learn um, from all the things that these amazing people are doing, but also because I believe that the West is so much advanced. So there are a lot of things that we can learn from as Africans. So I want to tap into that and be able to, as a carrier, bring this back to Cameroon, but also to the rest of Africa. So this for me is a very important event, not only in what I'm going to get, but also in the relationships that I want to be able to build. I see myself as one of those people who wants to stand the gap between the South and the North. And to do that, I need both support from both areas, and what more than a platform like this where we have all these people gathered together to build those relationships, which are very much needed right now.
Indeed, yes, absolutely. Thank you. So, so before I open all the questions and comments from everyone else, I just had a message from Sonita from Global Ecovillage Network that she was watching us, but she had to leave us just 5 minutes ago to go to another meeting. Sending you hugs, and sorry I'll miss the rest of this awesome call. Congrats, Crystal, for all the work you're doing. Much love, Sonita. So yes, I would open the discussion for everyone who wants to join. You can activate your microphones, your cameras, and please feel free to make a question or your comments. Don't be shy. It's okay. I was looking if there was anyone on Facebook or on the event that published any questions, but not so far.
Come on, guys. I'm sure someone has a question to ask.
Great. I was trying to ask a question and wasn't able to unmute my microphone, but finally I have done it. So, Crystel, I mean, you've spoken brilliantly, like somebody who has the Africa at heart. Yes, and you have a bit of experience with people in the north. Yeah, you've talked about the UN SDGs and about this camp. Yeah, it would be interesting how you came in contact with this kind of information and how you think that the most important paradigm of the SDGs, which you want to work on, could be made more widely known to the young people in Africa.
Okay, interesting question. um, I have been part of all these platforms, really, of this amazing young people. So I had an email notification inviting me to apply for this program. And for me, this was very surprising because I've really never been in contact with any of those people. I didn't even know about it. And for me, this really meant that a lot of people were seeing the work that I was doing. Personally, I try to share it with my networks because I imagine that a lot of young people will be interested, especially from Africa, to participate in an event like this. Unfortunately, I got very disturbing feedback, which really for me made total sense because this event to participate in costs $100 and $500. Like that's the actual fee. But if you manage to get the early bird discount, then you have to pay $1,100, which is a lot of money for a young person in Africa who is volunteering and doesn't have any salary and no really anything that they could use to support themselves. So in as much as personally events like this are really important and platforms like this could do a lot for both young people in Africa and Europe, it is important to find ways to subsidize or provide such information or events, make them available maybe online. Maybe somebody could be part of the camp online, just to give them access for those who couldn't afford to cover the cost, which is also one of the reasons why today I am doing a fundraising, because as an individual, I would not be able to, but understanding what it would bring not only to me and my organization, but for the young people of Africa, I believe that it is something to go in for.
If you have room for a follow-up question, I would like to ask you, in view of all these challenges you are facing, and it still seems to me like an uphill task to even get there, how do you foresee this partnership between young people whom you've aptly described as unable to even volunteer because of the conditions in which they live in Africa, and comparing with people who are holding this kind of camps for young people and with this kind of money? How do you foresee this partnership that you are thinking of between young people who are very poor and young people on another part who are very rich? What is the matrix that you think you can employ for this to happen?
Yeah, thank you for that question. As a young person who has been working in basically both both areas now. That's the global south and the global north. I realized that there's a lot that the people of the West can do for the people of Africa. For example, taking a program like this, if there was some funding that was allocated to an organization in Africa, for example, say like BetterWorld Cameroon, to host a program like this, empowering the people who would be able to deliver this program, then we have a possibility of a bigger impact, because then many more young people can attend. And since we are in one continent, it's cheaper to leave, for example, Nigeria or Kenya to Cameroon than to travel all the way to Europe. So really finding this grassroots, this local organizations, this national organizations that are already doing work in this direction, and to empower them and support them to be able to host similar programs like this for the young people who are not able to make it, for me, is a very good collaboration that could happen between the two continents.
Thank you.
No further comments from the audience so far?
So I have a question for Crystel, and my question is concerning this new situation of coronavirus that is affecting the world, and as we see it, everything is changing. The way people work, the way people connect. I personally don't think the world is going to be the same after this pandemic. So how do you think that this new situation will affect the way you work with the young people that you have mentioned? And do you see yourself just continuing in the old paradigm, or really finding new ways to adapt to the changing situation? What's your take on that?
Thank you for the question. And just to say that I think it would be a big mistake for anybody to think that after the situation we are going to go back to the old paradigm, because life as it is has taught us that we were not prepared for something like this, and that's why we had to go on lockdown, and to, as people who still have to continue, because now we can't sit back and say that, oh, there's the virus, so we just sit and wait indefinitely, because as of now it is not clear when we would see the end of this. So we have been able to, as humans, adapt to situations like this. And today we have people who are working from home, which means that we don't necessarily need to wake up every day and suit up and say that we are going to the office, or we don't need to sit face to face to work with our colleagues, which for me is really enlightening, because I believe that slowly and gradually this experience has made us to put in place measures for future challenges that we may have. And as we know it, the world is gradually becoming a global village. So also as an organization and as a young person, I've had this question also come up a couple of times from my friends and my colleagues, like, so you still want to work in Cameroon, but how do you do that from where you find yourself? And this clearly is evidence that you can continue to do the work that you do wherever you find yourself in the world, because we can work virtually. I mean, we are hosting this event with people in different places of the world. We didn't need to come and sit together in a conference room and say that we want to hold a meeting. So this is proof and evidence that things are definitely going to change. And as young people, especially young people in Africa, who are still living in the past reality, need to see this coming and already begin to prepare for it. If not, we would still get left behind, like has been the case in the previous years.
Okay, it's good that you mentioned young people in Africa. and talking about working remotely, maybe doing more online work and connection and networking. But I would want to ask you, given the situation of young people in Africa who do not necessarily have the infrastructure that other young people or other people in the world have in terms of connectivity, internet, smartphones, computers, and other tools needed to do this kind of networking that happens online and not in person. How do you think that they will be able to match up to the rest of the world? And how do you think that they can adapt to this new way of life, given the situation that we know in Africa? A lot of people cannot afford even money for internet, for example, not to talk of owning an expensive computer or a smartphone.
Yes, for me, this is the part where really the collaboration comes in. And as I mentioned earlier, I believe that partnerships and collaboration are a key tool, excuse me, that we can use to foster global development. Because for my time in Europe and my experiences traveling Germany, Belgium, and other countries, these are things that are quite easily accessible. Like sometimes I find people dump computers by the roadside, or just do away with phones and things like this. And then I begin to ask myself, but how do we, because then this also goes back into the environment and causing another issue of pollution and all of that. So how do we tap from these already available things and channel them back to where it's needed? So really, this is what we are focusing right now when we talk about building platforms for collaboration. How do we tap from this? How do we use this available things over here that are not being made use of to support the young people back in Africa? For example, we are looking personally as Better World Cameroon to set up like an e-learning center where we have a couple of computers at least where we can get to set up like a support system for these young people who on their own cannot afford to even credit their phones, especially with the situation in Cameroon now. Even just being able to stay in contact with family right now is very challenging. So we are looking at small projects, and really these are the little things that matter to keep the world connected and keep things moving when we talk of collaborations and partnerships.
Okay, if I might add something, and it can turn into also to ask for your personal comment, Crystal. You're working with a high value agricultural product, and one of the points of the vision for Bafut Ecovision 2030 and the Better World Cameroon is the fair trade platform that you have, of also being able to together with partners and people who really want to engage in this fair trade with Africa to really trade these high value agricultural products. And this could be a way in to a change with the way of technology that will support your education, that supports communication with each other. Sometimes you have a technology that in one case or another might help with your practices for sustainability. Like your comment on that, if you agree with this comment or not.
Yeah, it's a very important point that I was going to talk about, but I forgot to mention. Just to say that for too long now, Africa has relied on aid, and this has also really indebted us, put us into debt, and crippled our economic system. So as Better World, we are looking at alternative ways of doing it. How do we work with the people of the West without necessarily coming to beg from them? As Africans, we have things to offer. We have skills. We have also our local technologies that could be adapted to the West. Like right now, we are moved our concept of the rocket stove, and we are going to build one right here in Portugal. And of course, it will be adapted with the technology of the West. But this is a concept that is coming from Africa. So really, we have these things that we could also bring onto the world. So how do we exchange instead of just coming to say that, okay, we need money to build the stoves? in Cameroon and all of that. So how do we change aid to trade, understanding that it's a win-win for both parties?
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
Mm.
And with this, I give the example as well that we both of us know from Tamera and from the gatherings in Tamera. For example, Rajendra Singh from India as well. The way he started by retaining the water retention in the villages in India is just using traditional knowledge. But the thing that technology is not really here to replace, but just to complement each other. And I think this is part of also the healing process, not really saying we don't need your technology. No, but no, we can really cooperate and coordinate these two things.
Yeah.
Have the knowledge, you have some means that can help us.
Yeah.
Let's create something beautiful together.
Exactly. Yeah.
And another comment that I have, I don't know if anyone else has a question or a comment, so I don't jump right into it, was when you, for example, mentioned before about the youth and how important it is for people to really trust each other in this time, after this time of war, at this time that people want to migrate where they don't see an alternative. And the way that the African culture slowly gets to lose itself due to this effect, to the calling from the West, from this American dream, European dream, that in the end I don't think really exists. And it was interesting that you said that part of the values from BetterWorld Cameroon was accountability, responsibility, I think you said, and transparency,
Okay.
which could be the three letters for art. And art, we know it's a very good healing process, and I've seen some of the work you've done with the rock stove and the eco building. You really incorporate art and mindfulness, and so I wanted your insight on that. How you think it making all this game with words and art. How do you think that integrates your vision?
Can you just ask your question again, just so that I'm sure I got it
Yeah,
right?
I think I made it a bit too difficult. So playing with art as the way we conceive art and the way to express your culture, as well as the values that each letter represent. How do you see all this really can play a role when you want to um, reestablish the Bafut Ecovillage for refugee relief, for example? How much of a role for the healing, the heart, and yeah, the heart plays. I don't know if I made myself clear, but
I hope I got it right this time. Yeah. As we know it, art is a very strong part of the African culture. And art for us is different. It's not the way the West sees it and in the pens and in the drawing. Art for us is really just how we weave nature together. You go to a piece of land, how do you design it? How do you design a garden? How do you really, that's art. How do you design a house with this natural product? And really, for me, that's a very strong healing concept for Africa. um, as these young people living in Europe, it was like wow, especially for most of the people because it was their first time to come to Europe. So this is part of what we have been using to stay together. We brought that part of Africa where we introduced the culture. We spent time telling jokes. We spent time singing songs and dancing and just crafting things with our hands and doing art with our hands. And really, this is a way for us to channel all the frustration and the anger and the pain and the sorrow that we came with. At the same time, knowing that we are here and we can do anything about it. So instead of getting frustrated, how do we just find a way to give life to ourselves? Because also we are standing here as support systems for our families back home who are really counting on us to support them. So if we can't, first of all, and find the enthusiasm and the joy to live, then how do we do that? So this is very much something that we will be incorporating really into this whole resettlement project, and just helping people to use what is available, because this is part of us. How do we just revive it and allow people to channel all this negative energy into something positive by doing all this craft work and building the houses themselves and doing the things that actually brings joy to the soul.
Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah. Um, if anyone else from the audience has something to share with us for now.
Hello. Yeah. I actually just want to thank you very much, Crystel. I've gotten a lot from you, and I'm glad about the works you have been doing. But I'd like to get more insight from you with regards to like the situation going on right now, the coronavirus thing, and there's a lot of fear and panic all over the world, even especially the young people. In Africa, it's even worse, like it's everywhere. But what can you really say with regards to this current situation, their fear? Now, mentioned, it's true, most Africans, young people have a lot of skills. But now instead of building much more maybe on these skills during this time, there's much more on this panic, on this fear, on this. So what can you say as a leader, as a world leader, what can you say to that? And also what is your perception of the environmental state? What can you say about the climate, the changes? Because you mentioned that in this program you're already into this line of action. This is the group where you belong. So already what can you perceive with regards to the current situation? What can you say about this? And what is your address to the youth sphere in the world today? Thank you.
It's a very technical question to answer for me, because I say this and it's somehow hard to believe, but somehow with the whole chaos and the whole outbreak, I haven't been able to find myself in that position of fear. As I'm a Christian, and so my belief is that there are certain things that cannot come to me. And first, with that understanding, I'm able to just find that peace that if I believe that this is what the Bible says and this is what actually it is, then I should be able to trust that I am secured. But aside from that, it doesn't put away the reality that there are things that we must do. We have to respect the laws that have been put in place. We have to respect just the normal hygiene that, for me personally, was something we had to be doing long before the virus. So it's not because the virus has come now that we have to wash our hands. These are just things that we had to be doing. And this whole situation has just come to remind us that this is actually what we needed to be doing. Another way that I personally find to keep myself of all, because it's worrying when I hear that this is spreading into Africa, because we know that our systems in Africa really are not prepared for something like this. And even more disturbing when I think of Cameroon, that is right now in a crisis, and imagining something like this coming to the community might just ravage and just, I don't know, like just sweep a lot of people off their feet. So really my advice to young people would be not to focus so much on the negativity, um, but to find this time. I mean, I've been in confinement myself, and I have been looking for ways to empower myself. Like, this is time that you can really use to invest in yourself, instead of spending hours following news of 500 deaths, or 10,000 new cases and all of that, just to find the space to work on yourself, read a book, do something you've wanted to do before, learn how to dance. Or personally, I am developing my blog And this time really has been very instrumental for me because it allows me to be able to do more, unlike in a normal situation. So just channel this energy and this time into building yourself as a person, as an individual, because in the long run, something that you learn during this time will be able to impact somebody somewhere. And just like I believe that this blog would be able to stir up a lot of young people, because this is right now my challenge. How do I create a soldier of change makers? How do I, just like the virus infects young people, how do I infect or contaminate other young people to carry this passion? Because nobody is going to do these things for us. We have to sit up, we have to take our own destiny into our hands. And this would only happen if each of us step up and take action. It doesn't matter what little it is, but that action, for example, if I plant a tree, it's just a tree, but when the tree grows, it provides oxygen, it provides shade. So no matter how small you think what you were doing is, it actually has an impact. And really, this is also what I would be carrying to the camp, because our climate, our environment is pretty much connected to everything that we do. To the virus right now is affecting us, though it's affecting us because we are staying at home, and it's somehow also affecting the climate because we are getting reports of less activity in the ozone, and the environment and the home. So really all these things are really interconnected. I'm not going into the camp really just focusing on the climate, but really actually on all the SDGs, because this is what the camp 2030 is about. How do we achieve the sustainable development goals? So I'm winning from that perspective. Just as aside from your question, just to answer a question that I've had a couple of people ask me, like, what if the event gets cancelled? What if for one reason or the other you can make it? What happens to the money that you're raising right now? And my simple answer to that is, I am going to the event to get empowered and to get knowledge and to get skills and to get connections that would help my work. So I would just reinvest this money into my work already, and the work that I and the young people and the organization are doing, because really at the end of it all, that's the focus.
Okay, well, brilliant. That's a brilliant response in all of it. Thank you so much, Crystal. And I've been explained this 1 hour of interview really for us that we are here, and I think for the people who watch it, you really get a great impression of you as a young leader, young female leader, and this is what people need at this moment. I don't know if any other person has any questions or comments. Um, Okay, so if no one else has any other questions, I don't know if you want to close out, Crystal, with any...
Sure. I want to say a very big thank you first to you. You were one of the people who bought my vision, and I'll work immediately. And your help has been very, very impactful for, first of all, for me as a person, but also for the team that I'm working with and for our organization. And really, I just want to say thank you. And to thank everybody who took time to be part of this call. Really, for me, I've been finding the best way to really communicate what is it that I crave for, what is it that I envision for young people as a young person, what is it that I see, what is my better world for humanity. And really, this has been an opportunity to do that. And I just want to say thank you for taking our time to be part of this call, and for those who are going to watch after. a very big thank you. And I hope that we continue to do the little things that we are doing in our different corners, because really that's what makes the difference. One person on their own can make the difference. So we need each other to do what we do, where we do, to see the better world that we all want to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Crystal. And so, with nothing else to say, I would close out the Zoom meeting here. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Let's hope for the best. Let's all stay healthy in first place, in great spirits second place.
Yeah.
Let's all do our own little things that will make this a better world for sure. And yes, thank you, all of you. Have a beautiful day, a beautiful weekend. And yes, feel free to reach out anytime. Okay.